There's such a powerful energy of connection because I changed my talk title to Get Out of Your Own Way. And that's what Marty closed with in his prayer, but I didn't tell him that. I mean, there's some other, it was moving from anticipators to participators was the title for this week and next week, but I changed all that. You know, it's hard to decide 3 months in advance what you're going to talk about. And so sometimes I get in the middle of the week to write my talk and it changes. So today, our lesson is get out of your way. Get out of your own way. And it's from the book by Frederick Bales, Hidden Power for Human Problems. And he tells the story of a woman he calls Miss Sad. Sad. He said she was beautiful, and she was living that now is kind of an old-time familiar story, often seen in Hollywood, where she had won the local beauty contest in her small town, and so she went to Hollywood to become a famous actress, on fire with this desire to be in movie pictures, right? And every door she knocked on, every studio she went to, despite her beautiful attractiveness, the door was closed. She couldn't find work anywhere. And so she took a job as a waitress, which, you know, if living in Nashville, every valet guy parking cars and every waiter or waitress is an aspiring songwriter in Nashville. And in Hollywood, everybody that serves you your burgers is usually a wannabe actor or actress. So she took a job as a waitress, and then unfortunately she met this guy and ended up pregnant, and really felt that she loved him, and so she pleaded with him to marry her, and he would not. He would not. So there she was now, pregnant, no work, a waitress job, and she went to Mr. Bales for counseling, and she wanted to know why all her life, see if this fits for you, why all of her life she'd been able to bring things up to a certain point, but had never been able to complete them. That they just never, the finality had never worked out. She said, from the time I was a child, things have never come easy for me. Everything I've ever wanted has come only after long delays or terrific struggle. The only thing, she said, that came quickly was winning the contest, and she said even that, there was squabbling among the contestants and their parents and the judges, and it was, you know, a difficult thing for her to be chosen as the Miss Whatever in her hometown. Well, the full title of Mr. Bales' book is Hidden Power for Human Problems, the 7 Parent Thoughts Behind All Human Problems and How to Overcome Them. 7 parent, like parent and child. 7 parent problems, no, 7 parent thoughts, there we go, behind all human problems and how to overcome them. And he establishes the idea that we all know is truth and unity, that there is a deep underlying universal goodness and principle flowing in and throughout the universe, and that it takes our hopes and our desires and our choices and condenses them into form in our life. That as within, so without. That our basic beliefs about life determine whether we have illness or health, success or failure, happiness or misery. We all have learned that. We've been students of truth and learned that long enough. A parent thought is the name that he gives to the false beliefs that we've established that are controlling and governing our life. They're not real, they're false beliefs, but they've been embedded in us. Master thought is the corresponding opposite thought that will overcome the problem. Over time, we've developed a number of basic beliefs about life, and they're general beliefs, he says, that are widely held, that have been around for generations, and they've become embedded in what we call collective consciousness. And these are 7 ideas that he believes that are embedded in collective consciousness, buried deeply in the mind so that the average person isn't aware that they have them. I mean, we function in life and we think, well, you know, I can't make anything come together, but we don't think that that maybe is rooted as a thought deep within us that's a false thought, that's not true. He calls them parent thoughts because each of them gives birth to children. Other little false beliefs that tag along in your life and that kind of pile up in your life. He says the parent thought accepted becomes a magnet to attract similar thoughts and then similar experiences, and those experiences then fall into the deeper levels of mind and gravitate toward becoming a controlling belief in our life. And so what I have for you today in our message is the unmasking, that's a new word we use in our vocabulary, isn't it? Unmasking of one of the parent thoughts so that you can, and also the master thought, so that you can apply it to overcoming the problem that it sources. Unmasking or uncovering or discovering the parent thought is the only method of bringing permanent healing, whether it's a sick body, a sick heart, a sick pocketbook, whatever, a sick business, whatever it is. You have to unmask that underlying belief, the false belief that's embedded, and bring in a master thought that will overcome it and overpower it. Now, some parent thoughts, some of the 7, which I'm going to talk about some more of these next week, but I just wanted to give you an idea. There's a parent thought of loss. I seem to lose everything I set my heart on. And the master thought is security and fulfillment. There's a master thought of overload at work, overwhelm. A lonely, desperate state of feeling alone, that this is more than I can handle. And the master thought to that is that God thinks with adequacy. There's a parent thought of hostility, quarreling and competition. And the master thought that overcomes that, I didn't write down here, but the infinite is never aware of an opposing force. There's a parent thought of fear. And he gives us a recipe to say, so what? To overcome that fear. There's a parent thought of separation. This is if you experience jiltings or desertion or job loss in your life. And the master thought is unity and love. There's a parent thought of futility. What's the use? The will to win almost disappears and dissolves out of you. And the master thought is thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, that you can only experience what your consciousness allows. So he says we get these pictures of how our life is, and he says if it's not the right picture, don't hang it up in your, don't hang it up. And so next week I'll talk about a couple, but today, the parent thought in Miss Sad, in our opening story, is one that is also very prevalent. And it's the same one that allows the salesperson to kind of make the presentation and take the deal all the way up to closing and then fails to close the deal. It's the person who has a house to sell and has lots of lookers, but nobody ever finally buys. It's the person that wants a marriage proposal, but can meet and date and do all kinds of things, but it's never fulfilled in a marriage proposal. It operates in the body as coronary occlusion, stoppages, and irregularities. Could even be constipation if we're getting spiritual this morning. They all seem to stem from an underlying parent thought, he says, of, listen to this, obstruction and delay. So think about your life for a minute. Where do you pray for something and it's delayed? The answer is delayed. Or it just, no matter what you do, there just seems to be an obstruction to having that prayer fulfilled. He says God is never blocked. Never. Universal Spirit is never blocked. Obstruction and delay is something entirely foreign to the thoughts of God. There's only flow. There's only flow in spirit. He suggests in many instances that we can trace the inception of the parent belief back to childhood, and we know this. Something happens in your childhood and makes its mark on you, and then as he said, that more experiences like that happen, it builds into our memory, and pretty soon that belief is governing us. in the story about Miss Sad, he said at a young age she'd fallen in love with a shiny little tricycle, and she wanted it, and she went to the store and she begged her mother for it, and she just was almost throwing a tantrum over having it, and her mother said, "I'll get it for you at Christmas." And she was just thrilled and delighted, and then she went home and she realized, when is Christmas? And so every day she was asking for this shiny little tricycle, and her mom said, "I'll get it for you at Christmas." And it was, "Well, is it Christmas yet? When is Christmas? When is Christmas?" And she said, "It's not far off, it's not far off." So she's embedding this far off thing in her mind, And, well, when is Christmas? Is Christmas ever coming? It'll be coming soon. And so Mr. Bales says perhaps that was one experience she could trace back in, where she began to realize that things she really wanted only come after delay, after a long delay. He gave a second example where her mother was making her a beautiful party dress, and the fabric evidently had some kind of sparkle thread in it, so that it was just like a princess dress. And her mom was sewing that dress for her, but her mom got busy with other things, and it was taking a while to get the dress done. Her mom was also pregnant with another baby, and she ended up delivering a second child, a baby boy, and so the dress just got delayed and delayed and delayed. Her little party dress, she saw the fabric, but she could never see the dress. And to a 3-year-old, a day is like 100 years. And that is, Mr. Bales said, when all of our complexes and fears are foolish, but we do start taking them on in childhood when we don't have such a reasoning mind, where we're more controlled by our emotions and our feelings that batter us about. He says, when we examine the parent thoughts, we often say, "I don't have a belief in obstruction and delay. That's not me. I wanted this or that. I felt sure I was going to get it, and it just didn't happen. It didn't work out." But he said, Miss Sad was told to build an expectancy of results, to start working with the idea of completion, to start working with the idea of gaining results. She wanted to be married. And he said, "Fine." And she immediately started arguing with, "Well, who would want me when I'm pregnant with someone else's child? And who would want to marry a woman that's, going to have a baby? And who would want to take that on?" And with obstruction and delay, what we have to watch for with all of these parent thoughts is that we have trained our mind to think of all the reasons why our desires cannot come into fulfillment. And yet the infinite, the mind of God, only thinks in terms of fulfillment, only thinks in terms of completion. And so we want to think God's thoughts after God. Fulfillment, completion, it's done for you now. Not my will, but thine be done. Because the will of God for us is to fulfill those desires in our hearts. In Scripture it says, "If ye abide in me, and in my words, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it will be done for you." It will be done for you. Can you live in that trust? Can you live in that faith? The master thought that counters obstruction and delay is fulfillment. Fulfillment. God is in the business of fulfilling, flowing energy and creation into visibility, from the invisible to the invisible. God's in the business of creation, right? Spirit doesn't know anything of obstruction and delay. There is an order and a timing to some things, but fulfillment can come now. It can come in a short order. It can come in a short time. It can come very soon, but it will come. It will come. There's nothing in the universe that forbids it. Nothing. Only in your own mind is there delay. The universe is neutral toward us. Einstein said it's what? Friendly toward us. The universe is friendly to us. And neither refusing us nor bringing to us without our consent, but it always responds to our inner convictions. Our inner convictions. So we want to make a point this morning to align with the superintending intelligence. That's a word that Mr. Bales uses. Superintending intelligence. There is an infinite intelligence within you, and it implants a desire in your heart with the intention of Fulfillment. Fulfillment. And the only thing that can get in the way of that fulfillment is right here in your own mind, the thoughts that block it. So we want to affirm, my desires come to me now in the ease, grace, and order of God. My desires come to me now in the ease, grace, and order of God. Affirm it with me. My desires come to me now in the ease, grace, and order of God. Yeah, readily, easily. The universe responds to flow, not force. Well, he said Miss Sad's baby was born 3 months later, and the taxi driver that took her home from the hospital was a young veteran who was driving a taxi because he applied to the local police force and he was waiting for all that paperwork to get done. And he was pretty chatty, chatted her up quite a bit, and he said mostly he was really glad that she was well and healthy after the delivery of the baby because his wife had died in childbirth 2 years earlier. And he said he had a 2-year-old son that's always asking about if he could have a baby sister. And so he asked Miss Sad if her husband would mind if he brought the little boy by to see the little baby girl. And she said, well, she had no husband, and that no, she wouldn't mind showing the baby to the boy. And then you know the rest of the story, right? He started bringing the little boy around, and pretty soon she had a husband, he had a wife, and the kid had a sister, right? The baby boy had a sister. We get what we expect, but not any single thought, Mr. Bales was careful to point out, not any single thought, but a general system of thought finds its effects in obstruction. You know, I always say, does every thought create? No, thank God. Think about that. Does every thought create? No, thank God. It's a general system of thought. Your dominant consciousness is what creates. Bring yourself to a place where you no longer see obstruction, where you don't see delay threatening every single thing you do. I wonder how that's going to work out, or how long is that going to take? You want to get into the belief that you have a silent partner, because you do. You have a silent partner that agrees with you that there is a clear road ahead, that there is no obstruction. And you have God's nature within you, and so you have no right to expect delays. The Spirit of God implants that desire. Emily Cady says the desire in Lessons in Truth, that desire is the thing itself in its incipiency. And incipiency is a fancy word for in its beginning stages. When a desire is planted in your mind, that's the Spirit of God saying, this is what I have next for you. And here it is in its beginning stages. It's beginning to form and take shape in your thought and in your mind, and beginning to move out from the invisible into the visible realm. And there's no obstruction and no delay. It's all, we want to align our minds with the superintending intelligence of Spirit, because that operates without obstruction or delay. In a friendly way, you can think that God is trying to think its creation through you. God is thinking, its Spirit is thinking its thoughts through you. And you can begin starting small by seeing little things that work out in your life quickly and efficiently. You know, you decide to watch a television program and you turn on the TV and push the remote and it works out. It's there. Sometimes, I have to say, with Xfinity. In fact, this week I don't usually watch TV in the bedroom, but, you know, I could not get my remote to work, and I was out of AA batteries, you know, so I was running out and changing the batteries in the remote in the living room to the batteries in the bedroom. I was determined to watch my late night show or whatever, but most of the time, you can pick a little instance of something. You decide to have a cup of tea in the morning, and you boil the water, and you have the tea bag, and you make the tea, and it's complete. So begin to see yourself completing without delay, without obstruction, little things in your life. He says, get up every morning that you wake up and deliberately ask yourself, I wonder what good things will happen today. Happen, meaning they happen. They're not going to happen. What good things? Janie Paulson, Sig and Jane Paulson were like Phil and Dorothy, a couple ministry that they were very successful out of the Houston church in Texas. And then Sig was the minister at the chapel at Unity Village, our world headquarters. But his wife Janie always used to say, "What good thing is happening now?" She kind of lived in that expectation that good things were happening. What good deals will be finalized? Use the word finalized. What good work will be done at the business today? What new friendships will I form? Cultivate the expectancy of completed good. So what contacts will I make? What work will be done? What thing will be finalized? Begin to cultivate that vocabulary as a way of life so that you can move past this obstruction and delay into the master thought of fulfillment. Mr. Bales says 7 days of practicing a master thought is usually sufficient to change out the parent thought. And he says, give it a test, give it a test. Next week, I'm going to go over a couple of more. I had another one for you, but in light of the class happening today, I'm going to keep this shorter. I want to close, though, with a prayer that he created. His life was one where he had a pretty severe case of diabetes, and he really wanted to know what was causing it, what parent thought, what was causing the illness in him, and how he could overcome it. What master thought could he how could he use the rotor-rooter in his consciousness to route out the false belief and take on the master thought? And so he did cure from diabetes. He went through several tests, lots of tests, medical tests where they gave him tons of sugar and his readings were all fine, and he lived free of diabetes for many years. But he did this prayer, which is a great one for doing away with the parent thought and doing away with its interference so that it doesn't obstruct the master thought. And so I want to close with that today. And so I want you to invite you to get yourself into a centered place where you can listen and think about any, you don't have to know what the master thought is right now. We're going to be talking about it. I covered some of them in the beginning. Is it hostility? Is it irritation? Is it overload? Is it fear? Is it futility? Is it obstruction and delay? Is it separation? Kind of the theme for your life. You know what it is. And so take a moment and call that to mind, an experience maybe where you're praying for something and for whatever reason, healing for your body, a marriage proposal, love for your harmony for your relationship, health for your body, prosperity for your finances, whatever it is. And let's just use his prayer as we close this up today. Loving presence. Whatever is blocking my complete recovery must be some hidden strand of thought that holds some mental reservation. Whatever is blocking my complete recovery must be some hidden strand of thought that holds some mental reservation. I'm not aware of its nature, where it started, or what keeps it active. But it must be mine, whether I can trace any way to it or not. It must be in me. I do not want to keep it operating. Therefore, I now declare that it is a vestige of my former destructive thought. I emphatically state that it is completely out of line with the infinite thinker's thoughts which are trying to manifest perfectly through me. It's completely out of line with the infinite thinker's thoughts which are trying to manifest perfectly through me. That desire is trying to be fulfilled in you. It is a squatter living on territory where it has no right of any sort. I call in the law to evict, dissolve, and negate it right now. Feel after that. I call in spiritual law to evict, dissolve, and negate it right now. I wash my hands of it. I don't have to fight it or worry about it or pay any attention to it. It is nothing trying to be something. But it is no more real than the boogeyman that scared me as a child. I now turn every last thread of my thought to the contemplation of that steady movement of the thoughts of God in me. The thoughts of God are moving in me and through me, in and through every single cell in my body, in and through every single cell and thought in my mind. I think of Spirit's beauty, its unutterable harmonies, its total unawareness of any resisting force. I think of Spirit's breathing. It is good. It is good. It is well with my soul. It is good as it contemplates the universe and my life and all that it has brought into being. Quietly now, I let myself drift into the innermost parts of infinite mind. I catch something of its unshakable peace, knowing that this mind is flowing through my mind now. I affirm the power of the infinite and its perfection in my body and my life. I give thanks for the healing that I declare is now taking place. I affirm the power of the infinite and its perfect image in my body and in my life. I give thanks for the healing that I declare is taking place now. I am divinely fulfilled. I am divinely fulfilled. Let's affirm it. I am divinely fulfilled. And so it is. Amen.